Welcome everyone to the Council meeting on the 27th of June 2023, which I now declare open at 7:08. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the members of the public gallery who have joined us this evening, as well as those watching at home on the internet, and we appreciate everyone's patience as we've been addressing a couple of IT issues. As well as being live streamed, the video recording of this meeting will also be available on our website, so attendees in the gallery are advised that their presence may be recorded. I also ask that mobile phones be switched to silent during the meeting, and a reminder to the public in the gallery that under Governance Rule 75.1, personal video and audio recording in the chamber of the meeting is not allowed. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respects to their spirits, ancestors, community members and elders, past, present and emerging. And we also extend this respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We now move on to item 2 on the agenda, apologies and leave of absence. There are none, but I note that Councillor Hodgson is joining us via Zoom this evening, and welcome back, Councillor Hodgson.
Mayor, sorry, can I move a leave of absence, please?
Yes.
I'd like to apply for a leave of absence from 3rd of July 2023 to 30th of July 2023, as I have media commitments in Japan.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. I'll just let Governance get the words up for that, or if you could send that wording to Governance.
Do you want just the dates, or?
Yeah, just the dates.
3rd July to 30th of July inclusive, please.
Is there a seconder for that leave of absence? Councillor Byrne. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. We now move on to item 3, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover and seconder that the minutes from the council meeting held on Tuesday the 6th of June 2023 be confirmed?
Yeah.
Moved Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Sypek. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 4 is declarations of conflict of interest. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest on any item in the agenda this evening? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I have a general interest conflict with item 9.3 on the agenda for reasons previously disclosed to the CEO in writing in accordance with the governance rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I have a material conflict of interest on item 9.4 on the agenda, as the report mentions me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Any others? If not, we move on to item 5, presentations. Councillors, do we have any presentations? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got a quick presentation as yourself and myself attended the Aberfeldy Sports Club Gala Ball on Saturday night, which was celebrating their 75th birthday. So just a shout out to the club on the amazing work that they have done. 75 years old is certainly a wonderful achievement, and it's going to be a very big year this year for Aberfeldy Sports Club with the construction of their new pavilion, which we are endorsing in this year's budget in a couple of items' time. So just a shout out to everyone involved. It was a great night, and really good to see the history. They had a really good video playing the history of the club, and we can be really, really proud that we've got such a strong EDFL club in our municipality, and they really do great work within our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp, and it was a great night, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do for the next 75 years. Are there any other presentations? If not, we move on to item 6, petitions and joint letters. Councillors, do we have any petitions or joint letters? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a petition here. It's partial online with 273 and written 74 in regards to parklet objections.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Just give me a second to confer with Governance. Thank you, Councillor Sypek. In accordance with Governance Rule 62.4, I refer the petition to the CEO for consideration. Are there any other petitions or joint letters? If not, we move to item 7, public question time, and we've received 7 questions this evening. Questions 1 and 2 are from David Uber, who I believe is joining us in the gallery. Thanks, David. Please come up to the podium to read your first question.
Test 1, 2.
Yep. Thanks, David.
First time caller, long time listener. Referring to Council Plan and Health Actions Year 2 that were tabled last meeting, in particular that Council met with representatives of the City of Melbourne to continue discussions for options on improvements in Racecourse Road, Flemington. This was referring to, or I suppose my question to reader as written, this commentary is quite vague. Can you provide more detail about this progress? In particular, any notes, actions or information that could provide a meaningful update on MV 2040 Implementation Initiative 85.
Thanks, David. And I'll ask our CEO, Helen Swee, to respond.
Thank you, David. Through the Mayor, Council is committed to progressing improvement opportunities along Racecourse Road and the surrounding area. Officers recently met with representatives at the Department of Transport and Planning, City of Melbourne, and Public Transport Victoria to progress this initiative. The working group reviewed the holistic network benefits, localized traffic and parking management impacts, and streetscape amenity opportunities to ensure they align with the broader strategic goals of the project. Furthermore, the draft annual budget includes funding to continue this work into next financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And your second question, David.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Helen. Referring again to MV 2040 Implementation Initiative 85, appreciating it is a Vic Roads road, have Council made any communications or advocacy specifically relating to on-road separated cycle lane on Epsom Road or Racecourse Road with the Department of Transport?
Thank you, David. And I'll ask our CEO to respond.
Thank you, David. Through the Mayor, Council is committed to encouraging the use of sustainable transport options across Moonee Valley, including an increase in participation of sustainable commuting and active transport. Council has strongly and consistently advocated to the Department of Transport and Planning for improved bicycle facilities on the arterial road network over many years through meetings, correspondence, and promotion of the benefits of active travel. It is anticipated that on-road bicycle lanes will form a core part of any improvements to the Racecourse Road precinct. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO, and thank you, David, for joining us tonight. And I'd say as well, it'd be good for you to get in touch with myself or your ward councillors if you want to share some feedback directly.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Questions 3 and 4 are from Teresa Day, who will not be joining us this evening. So on behalf of Teresa, with this month's release of the New South Wales Chief Scientist Engineer report on synthetic turf on public spaces, recommending that artificial turf be not played on in wet weather conditions, which causes faster deterioration of the playing surface and loss of infill and distribution of nanoplastics in our stormwater and waterways, are Council still classifying this material as an all-weather material in its assessment of use? I refer to the CEO to respond.
Thank you, Teresa. Through the Mayor, Council does not classify synthetic turf as an all-weather material, but notes its improved durability and ability to be programmed more intensively when compared to natural turf. Council is aware of the New South Wales Chief Scientist and Engineers' independent review into the design, use and impact of synthetic turf in public open space report. The extensive report highlights many of the problems and benefits of synthetic turf and what are important factors when considering creating a synthetic surface for outdoor sports. Many of Council's synthetic turf facilities are used all year round by various community sporting groups, i.e. soccer, baseball, hockey, and local schools. However, specific weather conditions are important when planning, scheduling, and use of synthetic turf. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. And the next question from Teresa is, temperatures in urban areas are set to increase, with double the number of days above 35 degrees Celsius predicted by the end of this decade. With those playing on artificial turf already experiencing severe fatigue, heat exhaustion, and being exposed to chemicals off gassing from both the artificial turf and the rubber infill, is the Council still classifying artificial turf as an all-weather material despite these serious health concerns, which are also outlined in above-mentioned report? And I refer to the CEO to respond.
Thank you, Teresa. Through the Mayor, as with the previous response, Council does not classify synthetic turf as an all-weather material. When establishing new or renewing existing facilities of this nature, numerous design considerations are explored to minimize the negative health and environmental impacts of synthetic sports fields. This includes the potential use of cork or another organic infill instead of rubber granules as a filler, ensuring suitable filtration systems and catchment traps are installed, and ensuring the design includes raised edges and shoe cleaning gates at all entry-exit points. The creation of new synthetic turf fields will be considered on a case-by-case basis, following a comprehensive suitability and needs assessment and extensive community consultation. Officers will also continue to monitor latest research into the benefits and implications of synthetic turf fields and continue to explore alternative approaches that arise to lessen the negative impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. The next two questions are from Peter Robinson. However, one of them doesn't comply with Governance Rule 61.8.2 and Rule 61.8.4. So I will just read the one question. Frustrated members and ratepayers have just two short 25 lanes to swim in at the $60 million EK Aquatic Centre during the busy evening hours. Can the Council please state if this is suitable or not for a council with a population over 100,000? And I refer to the CEO to respond.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Thank you, Peter, for your continued interest in the success of the Kilo East Nature Centre. The population of Moody Valley is serviced by multiple aquatic centres. There are two council indoor aquatic facilities to service our community, as well as a number of privately managed facilities. The Kilo East Nature Centre not only offers lanes swimming, but enables a range of nature programs and services designed to realize better health and well-being outcomes for Moonee Valley residents. Usage data suggests that there is sufficient capacity currently in the indoor 24-meter pool to meet demand for evening lane swimmers at Kilo East Nature Centre. In determining lane availability, consideration is given to ensuring that the facility is managed in a way that maximizes participation for a variety of users, facilitates community use, and ensures that council facilities are used in a way that protects the health and safety of users. Usage of the Kilo East Nature Centre is in accordance with industry safety and capacity requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. The last two questions are from Nina Franceschi. The first is, with regards to fake turf being proposed for Quinn Grove Reserve, how will Council stop rubber infill that is lost per pitch every year from washing into our waterways through stormwater? I refer to the CEO to respond.
Thank you, Nina. Through the Mayor. The draft Queen Grove Precinct Master Plan specifies proposed synthetic soccer pitches on school land in accordance with Council resolution. Detailed design has not yet been undertaken. The impact of rubber infill loss from synthetic playing surface can be mitigated in design by specifying alternatives such as cork, zeolite, and sand as infill. In addition, ensuring suitable filtration systems and catchment traps are installed, and ensuring the design includes raised edges and shoe cleaning grates at all entry-exit points reduces the loss of infill material to waterways. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final question from Nina is, why is Council considering installation of fake turf made from PFAS when Melbourne Water, Moonee Valley and Marybeck councils collaboratively decided not to remove the base of the concrete at the Moonee Ponds Creek naturalisation project due to the dangers of exposing PFAS? And I refer to the CEO to respond.
Thank you, Nina. Through the Mayor, Council officers understand that not all synthetic turf products contain PFAS. Officers will continue to monitor latest research into the benefits and implications of synthetic turf fields and continue to explore alternative products that may be available to lessen these impacts when specifying new or replacement synthetic fields. Council will also continue to follow advice and guidelines provided by the Victorian Government and sports governing bodies when considering the development of synthetic turf fields. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Item 8 is reports from delegates. Councillors, are there any report backs from delegates? If not, we move on to item 9, reports, and 9.1 is 386 and 392 to 398 Racecourse Road, Flemington, Lot 1 as PS 334464S and Lot 1 TP 553631P. Use of the land as a hotel in a general residential zone, construction of a multi-storey building including alterations and additions to the existing hotel, Newmarket Tavern, with an extended area for the sale and consumption of liquor, a reduction in car parking requirements, and the creation and alteration of access to a road in a road zone Category 1. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Move the officer's recommendation, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. This is an amendment to an application that was confirmed by VCash a little while ago. It was actually an application that came to us, I think, on our very first meeting for this term of council, where we were asked to look at some of the hours of operation for the outdoor areas, and we worked very hard to try to mitigate some of the noise impacts of this proposed hotel on Racecourse Road, where the Newmarket Tavern currently sits. That then went off to VCash, and there was some further massaging of those hours, but that's a VCAT decision where we put our best case forward and have to accept the decision that was made. This application now is an amendment to that permit to include an additional floor in what was a 5-storey building to make it a 6-storey building, and an additional basement to increase the car spaces from 20-something to 40-something, 24 to 42. So the additional floor increases the hotel rooms from 50 to 61. At the VCAT hearing, the previous VCAT hearing, there was comment that, and I've commented on it myself in the chamber, that unfortunately for Racecourse Road, we currently have no structure plan in place, which means that there is no specific height guidance for this particular site or other sites, which is an ongoing concern and is a reason that Murnong councillors have continued to advocate for the need for a structure plan or the equivalent to the neighbourhood plans for this precinct. And So currently, without that planning guidance, we really have no particularly forceful strategic planning document to tie us to any particular height for the building, and there are really no clear grounds that we would have for opposing the increase from the increase of the story to this building. There were no objections received when this was advertised, so I guess there's some, that's perhaps demonstrates that the concerns around this were really around the amenity from the noise, and that issue was dealt with previously. So I'm happy to support this application. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Bedio?
Look, not much more to add. I concur with Councillor Isa. I think this application is a perfect example of why we really need to work on the structure plan for Racecourse Road. Personally, I don't love the development, but as Councillor Isa stated, we don't really have a planning basis to refuse this application, so for that purpose I'll support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Tyson. All those against? Councillor Byrne and Councillor Sypek. That is carried. We now move on to item 9.2, 39 to 45 Ascot Street, Ascot Vale. Construction of 20 dwellings and reduction in car parking requirements, Section 72 Amendment. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Bedio.
Mayor, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillors, is there a seconder? Councillor Hodgson, thank you. Councillor Bedio.
Thank you, Mayor. The application before us is for a Section 72 amendment to a planning permit issued on the 4th of May 2022 for the construction of 20 dwellings and a reduction in car parking. With respect to this application, there has been some objections raised about the number of car parking proposed on the development and the potential impacts to the availability of on-street car parking for other residents on the street. The planning scheme requires 21 car parks, and the proposal before us instead provides for 14 spaces with the provision of one shared car space, so 15 spaces in total. This represents a waiver of 6 car spaces from the statutory requirement. The reality of statutory planning, however, with respect to the growing density of urban Melbourne is that the availability of car parking will be an ongoing issue. However, I don't believe we should let this prevent us from delivering the crucial mix of housing and stock that's desperately needed in this current market. Dwellings such as what is proposed offers a means for people to enter the housing market and opens up a new rental opportunities. As someone who has recently gone through the rigmarole of fighting over a new rental, I know too well how much demand there is currently for in the market for increased housing in our municipality. With respect to parking demand and ongoing constraints, I believe the applicant has put forward a suitable and innovative solution with the introduction of a shared electric vehicle to be managed by the building's body corporate. Personally, I'd love to see similar ideas rolled out in future developments where parking has been raised as a concern, given that issues around parking will continue to worsen as our population continues to grow. I'm happy to support this application to grant the permit for this property. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Bedio. Look, this is a planning application that in its original form I wasn't supportive of. We amended the permit, the permit that was granted in the end by councillors included an amendment to comply with the parking requirements without changing the footprint. So we did set them a pretty rough task. But my reasons for not supporting the development in the first place was I just felt that there was 20 dwellings on this space was just a little bit of an overdevelopment, and I do acknowledge Councillor Betty's arguments in support of increased housing stock. We certainly have a housing crisis, and increased housing is something we should definitely support. Just for this site, this one felt a little bit much for me. What we have to do tonight, though, is to consider whether the amendment that's come back, which is not to increase the car parking to be compliant with the requirements, there's still a reduction in car spaces, But there is an increase of 1 on what was originally offered, which was, I think there were 12 residential car spaces and 1 visitor space, which is now 14 car spaces for residents and 1 shared car space. It is an improvement on what the permit was granted before, and so for that reason, I can support the officer's recommendation tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Isa.
Thank you. Look, similarly to Councillor Hodgson, I also voted against this particular application when it came to us previously, and partly that was because the condition that we put in there I just felt was unachievable. So it's this has come back now to try to find a workaround, which makes perfect sense. And the increase in provision, particularly of the car, so the 2-seater share car, and providing a couple more car spaces, I think does do a better job. I'm just really keen to make sure that the developer in this case does make it really clear to people that there will be no visitor permits, there will be no additional permits. This particular street is one of those streets in Ascot Vale that's covered by the showgrounds permit days, so there will be days, a number of days each year where on-street parking without a permit just isn't possible, and enforcement, we've been ramping up enforcement of that, and look, people get very upset about that situation. So I do hope that people moving into the property are made well aware of those circumstances. But look, I'm happy to support the application in its current form. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Bedio, Byrne, Hodgson, Isa, Nation, Sharp. All those against? Councillor Sypek, Councillor Tyson. I declare that motion carried. We now move on to item 9.3, adoption of the Footpath Trading Policy and Fee Schedule 2023-24. And I understand Councillor Adams has declared a conflict, so we'll give her a moment to leave the room. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with some amendments, please, Mayor. The amendments all are related to point C, so if I can just take
read out point C.
Yep. So point C, note the footpath and parklet guidelines attachment 3 with the following amendments which will be provided to all footpath trading permit holders. 1, page 12, add council supports traders and stakeholders to work together to share public spaces where practicable to achieve equitable outcomes. Point 2, page 14, amend if for any reason unresolvable concerns are expressed about a parklet, a review by a Moonee Valley City Council officer may be required. This may result in removal of a parklet space. Point 3, page 17 to 18, I'll just say amend. Assessment of parklet applications requires a cross-council approach from relevant departments with officers' discretion to be applied to ensure equitable outcomes. Assessment of an application or renewal of a parklet could include the following considerations to determine net public benefit of the parklet: whether the parklet can be shared across multiple businesses for mutual benefit, whether there are unresolvable concerns raised by nearby businesses or residents, whether there is support for the parklet, whether there are multiple applications within a precinct, consideration of parklet saturation will be applied during the assessment process, whether there are other options for increasing footpath trading. Point 4, page 18, amend. If this situation occurs, a waiting list and annual or biannual rotation will be put in place, which may lead to parklet hosts needing to relinquish a parklet to give another business an opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillors, are we all aware of what's been moved?
Could I just please get repeated section 3, page 17 to 18, the second outline dot point?
Whether there are unresolvable concerns raised by nearby businesses or residents.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This is coming back to us following the deferral where we've just worked to add some points to the guidelines to help, to help applicants of parklets understand the ways in which those parklet applications will be assessed by officers. This motion includes three components. There's the policy and so there's the footpath trading policy, the footpath trading policy fee schedule, and then the footpath and parklet guidelines. And the changes put forward are for the guidelines. This package is trying to improve and streamline our existing footpath trading policy and our separate sort of notions and guidelines around parklets to try to bring it all together post the implementation of parklets over the COVID pandemic. So it's been a lot of work for officers to pull this all together and to try to create this these new rules for how we deal with parklets as part of our footpath trading. And they've put a lot of work into looking at the fees that might apply, and so there are some adjustments to those fees. And people who currently pay fees under the footpath trading policy may find that their fees for the new year, starting the 1st of July, may alter. Some may go up, some may go down. But what we've tried to do there is make the fees reflect the area of the footpath rather than what they were previously, which is just the width of the commercial frontage. So previously, a shop could be a certain width, and it didn't matter how wide the footpath was and how many tables might be able to fit on that particular stretch of footpath. So we're trying to make it more equitable by looking at the amount of square meterage on the footpath and charge people a fee related to that measurement. But as I say, that may mean that some people's fees go down, and some people may find that they are needing to pay slightly more. The footpath trading policy now includes parklets. For the most part, parklets have been really, really well received across the municipality. They've provided some outdoor dining spaces during COVID to really help businesses. We've run into some tensions in some areas, and so the guidelines are trying to help officers to work through those tensions, and the extra words that we've put in there tonight are really trying, as I said, to give some guidance to people about how those different views might be worked through and resolved. Often it might be that there are some creative resolutions. There might be possibilities for sharing the space on the parklet. There might be some possibilities for offering a trader some more footpath space. The end goal of all of this is to try to improve our precincts and try to bring economic benefit to our traders, our residents, to try to enliven the streetscapes and bring a sense of life and economic prosperity to all of our different activity centres. So I hope that that people who are applying for parklets understand how they will be assessed, understand the fees that will now be attached, and that people enjoying outdoor dining, that people across the municipality really enjoy the opportunities that the parklets provide for outdoor dining. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Hodgson, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, this is really an important policy for us at Council. I think we've made do for the last few years since COVID grants brought parklets to our streets. with finding ways to activate and allow businesses to operate outdoors, whilst not really having a solid policy setting to lean and fall back on when there were issues. So I'm really supportive of having a policy in place which helps our community and our traders to understand exactly what will be expected, what the benefits could be, and how we're going to manage any issues that may arise. So I think that this strikes a really good balance. There are obviously some businesses that are unlikely to apply for parklet permits because they don't have use for a parklet. And it's often those businesses like retail and professional services that don't necessarily see that there's a benefit for them from having parklets. But the attachments to this and the work that the officers have done to really demonstrate the community benefit of increasing the space really in streets that people can, pedestrians can sit and enjoy our business precincts, does have flow-on effects for those other businesses in the street, despite the impact on car parking, which is a perennial issue raised by traders. So as Councillor Isa has indicated, there will be a big fee restructure really, and people will see a difference in what they're paying. But I think that also delivers an equitable outcome, because we have seen some businesses benefit from free parklets for a number of years, and that has started to irk neighbouring businesses who haven't benefited from the COVID grants that allowed those parklets to be built. So going forward, we have, I think, a really fair policy here, and it provides, you know, the parameters that we need to make sure that parklets can be successful and loved by all. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. These parklets were a great idea when COVID hit, and the reason why they were introduced was for distancing, for 1.5 metres distancing. Not for outdoor dining or anything like that, it was for distancing. And when the regulation was lifted by the state government for distancing, that's when these parklets should have been retracted by the council. But I think with the popularity of it all, there was a lot of people who liked it and a lot of people who just didn't bother them. I would have thought even when COVID was lifted, we would have got rid of the parklets as well, just to avoid any issues, because, like I said, it was only introduced for one thing and one thing only. So what we've got now is we've got a lot of people that like them, a lot of people that don't like them. And now we're trying to figure out a way of who's going to get one, who's not going to get one, who can keep one, who can't keep one. I've been down to Pin Oak Crescent, and down there, it's not a parklet, it's a blocklet. And it works really well down there because it goes across, you know, a numerous amount of traders down there. And it's like a general blocklet for everyone. And I think that's a good formula. It works well. I struggle to see how this is going to work. I sort of look to our officers to hopefully that they can find a fair and equitable way of achieving this. But myself personally, I would have preferred to have gone down another way and to increase the footpath trading on the footpaths where there are nice wide footpaths. And if someone wanted more space along that footpath, why not? That would probably be the better way of doing it. So, yeah. So they're just my thoughts, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor, and I really appreciate the time officers have put into trying to, I guess, retrofit some guidelines on a program that obviously, as councillors have alluded to, popped up in the midst of COVID, where we were just trying to adapt and support local traders. I appreciate where we've landed, and I also appreciate the feedback from residents, business owners, both positive and negative. I think the majority of the public, as you'll see in the report, are in support of parklets. Ultimately, it is which businesses have them, which don't, what is a fair and equitable way of allocating them, and in reality there isn't, because someone gets one and someone ultimately loses a parking spot. It's how we as a council, through this policy and officers' discretion, will determine if where they are. And there are some probably challenges that exist in this policy. One is the 85% parking occupancy, because it may strike out some of our probably best parklet locations, particularly in Puckle Street, where parking is a premium. You would hate to see a couple of successful parklets there get removed based on a traffic study, which at times would be over 85%. We know what it's like to get a park. One of the other probably issues that I have in it is the reference to laneway activations. Now, I think activating laneways, particularly dead laneways in commercial areas, is a really good opportunity. The policy does state that for laneway applications, traders will be permitted to use part of a laneway for commercial use as long as the commercial use does not prevent or obstruct required access. Now, that's sort of, for a laneway, a lot of them are just a laneway by sheer nature of the way they're built, and potentially that may enable or not enable anyone, even if two businesses are in support, to utilise a laneway in lieu of a parklet, because ultimately they would be obstructing the laneway. Finally, I probably just would flag in the policy fee schedule, there is the fee allocated to everything in that schedule. Display of goods $312, advertising $156. The only thing that doesn't have a fee, information stands and signs related to local, state and federal elections. I feel like if everyone else is paying $156 for an A-frame, maybe politicians should as well. That's all from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I will be supporting this motion that's before us tonight, but I do it with some hesitation. I would like to thank Councillor Eyes, the councillors, the staff, business owners, community members, everyone who's had some input to where we've gotten to. And the thing is as mentioned before by previous councillors, is that we had this opportunity during COVID to set up these parklets, and it came very quickly, and what was able to be created in not only Moonee Valley but Australia-wide, worldwide with parklets was really quite remarkable. And it left us with this this almost great problem to have, but how we were going to work with parklets going forward. And they can be controversial, but as we've seen in our stats, we've got 78% of people are highly supportive of them. I've dined in a parklet. I would say the majority of people probably have dined in a parklet, and a lot of people really like that experience. But there are a few things in the policy that I don't necessarily agree with. I think using that 85% marker, as Councillor Nation pointed out, are we ready to say goodbye to our parklets in Puckle Street? Are we ready to say goodbye to our parklets in Napier Street? I don't know. Like, these businesses, they're thriving parklets. They are thriving parklets. And they're doing so well, not only for the businesses, but they're doing well for the local areas. People come to Essendon or they come to Moonee Ponds to visit these parklets and see what they have to offer. So in the absence of nothing else, or nothing to this depth, I feel like we have to approve something tonight. It was obviously deferred last meeting, and I feel like there has been some work on this to try to get things a little bit better. But I do feel sad that we might be saying goodbye to some much-loved parklets. I will note, just because I know that there was a petition tabled tonight, and there was also reference in the material in regards to the Centreway. The Centreway doesn't reach 85% occupancy, for people who are wondering at this point in time. But obviously there are other criteria in regards to that. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes and what the effects are, and if parklets are removed, the community feedback. But I will say thank you to all of the businesses who did jump onto the parklet bandwagon in the time of need to create safe spaces for people within the municipality to be able to dine safely when needed. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak?
Could I please move an amendment, Mayor?
Yes, what is your amendment?
Can I add a point D, which reads, bring a review of the footpath trading policy and footpath and parklet guidelines, I like it, back to council in June 2024. Right?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Nation. I'll just allow governance to fix their shorthand. Thank you. Governance, can you just scroll up to the anchor point at the top? Yep. And then back down. Yep, thank you. Are all councillors aware of what's been moved as the amendment? Yep. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Nation, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I guess listening to a few of my fellow councillors speak, while it may be done anyway to bring a review of the policy and guidelines back to council after 12 months, I think having that outlined as part of this motion probably gives me a little bit of reassurance that after 12 months, the councillor unit and officers can look at if there's been any unintended consequences. It is a fairly significant change, not the motion before us, but the policy in general, as we've all alluded to, that we have retrofitted a policy and we just don't want it to have any unintended consequences. It also won't be, it's deliberately that point is a review. An extensive amount of work has gone into this policy and these guidelines, and then their subsequent incorporation into our general amenities and local laws if accepted tonight. So this is not asking to reinvent the wheel, but I think a check-in after 12 months, at least for us as a councillor unit, in case there are issues that we have not anticipated, either officers or councillors or the general public, that need to be addressed. We can do that at that 12-month review rather than potentially a councillor having to bring a notice of motion and kick-starting a process that might take more time and more work. Hopefully that captures some of the concern, I guess, around the chambers, if this is the right way forward. And councillors, I hope you see this as a practical way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Bedio, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Not much further to add, Mayor. Other than I agree with Councillor Nation, we're very much in uncharted waters with parklets. They're still relatively new. A lot of cities around the world are working out how to best manage their parklets, and I think it makes sense to review this in 12 months' time to see if the policy is fit for purpose. So happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, happy to support the amendment. Just wanted to, I guess, just clarify that there is a difference between the policy and the guidelines. Some references were made earlier to comments being in the policy that they're not actually, they're in the guidelines. And while we're endorsing the policy tonight, we're only noting the guidelines. So I think there is already within that differentiation some scope there for officers to address things that may not work as intended. But very happy to support the amendment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Byrne?
Thank you, and I will be supporting this amendment. I think that it's a sensible thing to add to a good motion. I'm wondering if the mover, if this was to get up, I'm just wondering if in June 2024 or by June 2024, I suppose I wouldn't want there to be any hesitations from officers to bring a report back earlier if there were some unintended consequences to the guidelines. I don't really want to be waiting, I suppose, until June if something is highlighted next month to have to wait 11 months to potentially fix something. But I also note that, as Councillor Isa has mentioned, that they are just guidelines, so it doesn't necessarily need to absolutely be followed like a policy. But I would be supporting this, but I'm just wondering if perhaps we can just jiggle some of the words after that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? If not, I will put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? And that is Councillor Bedio, Byrne, Hodgson, Isa, Nation, Sharp, Tyson. All those against? Councillor Sypek. That amendment is carried to form part of the substantive motion. And we now return. The motion has been moved by Councillor Isa, seconded Councillor Hodgson, spoken to by Councillors Nation and Sypek. Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Byrne.
I might just move an amendment as flagged prior. So perhaps change it to back to council prior to June 2024.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nation. Councillor Byrne, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thanks. Look, I'm kind of flexible with what words actually end up in here. I think that the intention is somewhat clear, though, that there is that leeway for officers to bring back a report earlier if needed. I was also umming and ahhing whether or not to change it to July 2024, therefore it could be in the last meeting of June. But I am mindful that us endorsing this policy so late in June this year has actually affected or potentially affected the way people are going about their liquor licensing that's running out at the end of the business year. So actually having it prior to June will also give that extra month leeway to avoid some of the issues we've had this time. So that's my thinking behind this amendment. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Nation, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And look, happy to support. I think the June month there before the end of the financial year was more so in case we needed to, through the policy, consider striking different fees or having a different approach within the guidelines, within the policy. I know the fee schedule can fluctuate each year, but it might be that we find we go out, no one wants one, it's too expensive, they've been getting it for cheaper. It might be something else that we need to consider. I think the alignment with the financial year, particularly with the process that's being followed for these as well, having it at the end of a quarter, be it June, September, would be fine, but I think June gives it enough time to play with the amendment we're speaking to, enabling it to come earlier if there is something that really needs to be addressed, and it saves us from, as I said before, having a notice of motion to try to kick-start it. It will give officers that ability. So more than happy to support the amendment to the previous amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Bedio, Byrne, Hodgson, Isa, Nation, Sharp, Tyson. All those against? Councillor Sypek. That amendment is carried to form part of the substantive motion. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillors Bedio, Byrne, Hodgson, Isa, Nation, Sharp, Tyson, and those against, Councillor Sypek, and that motion is carried. And we will now ask Councillor Adams to return to the meeting.
Thanks, Mayor. As I declared a material conflict of interest in item 9.4, I will step out of the room now.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Welcome back, Councillor Adams. We now move on to item 9.4, resolving conflict of interest item prior to the adoption of budget 2023/24. Councillor Samantha Byrne. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Adams.
I'll move the officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. And a seconder, Councillor Bedio. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Samantha Byrne has declared a general conflict of interest on a submission item in relation to the budget 23/24. This report is to enable Council to resolve this conflict prior to the consideration of the budget 23/24 and will enable Councillor Byrne to participate in the decision-making process in accordance with Local Government Regulation 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Bedio. Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. We'll now ask Councillor Byrne to return to the meeting. Welcome back, Councillor Byrne. We now move on to item 9.5, 2023/24 budget. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move the officer's recommendation with just a few additions. I'll just read out the additions if that's okay. So, point 1 or point A, adopt the budget 2023/24 in brackets incorporating the 4-year budget, end of brackets, new brackets, attachment 1, end of brackets, in accordance with section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020, with the following amendments. Point 2, an additional funding allocation of $11,760 to the SES Essendon unit. Point 3, rewording of the $120,000 budget allocation to Moonee Ponds Activity Centre, laneway improvements and upgrades to Moonee Ponds Activity Centre improvements and upgrades in consultation with the Moonee Ponds Traders Association. Point 4, note the submissions received with respect to the proposed year-round soccer pitches at Fairbairn Park and endorse this budget allocation subject to consultation with stakeholders, following which a report on the proposal with reference to the soccer strategy is to be brought to Council. Point 5, in the schedule of fees and charges, East Keilor synthetic soccer pitch off-peak local groups reduced from $57.70 to $55.50, so 0% increase. Point 6, in the schedule of fees and charges, East Keilor synthetic soccer pitch peak local groups reduced from $70 to $30 to $69.50, so 0% increase. Point 7, in the schedule of fees and charges, East Keilor synthetic soccer pitch off-peak non-MVCC groups increased from $81 to $86.70, so 7% increase. And point 8, in the schedule of fees and charges, East Keilor synthetic soccer pitch peak non-MVCC groups increased from $100.50 to $107.55, so 7% increase. And point 9, in the schedule of fees and charges, include the adopted Footpath Trading Policy Fee Schedule 2023/24, in brackets attachment 5, as per item 9.3, adoption of the Footpath Trading Policy and Fee Schedule 2023/24.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. And I'll just note for councillors following along that there was a different version circulated originally, which changed point 8 to point 1, which I saw some confusion around the room, but that is as circulated. Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Is there a seconder?
Point of clarification, Mayor. Is the rest of the officer's recommendation reading as is?
What's been moved is the same as what was in the budget, yes.
Yeah, just that was the other change, all the rest as is. Thank you.
Everything that's been previously circulated was read out by Councillor Sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Sharp, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, a lot of time and effort from councillors, our executive and our officers goes into setting our budget every year, and we are now in the final stages. So our draft budget has been out for consultation for the last however many weeks, and we did have a number of submissions. Some of these proposed additions that I've read out, I won't speak to them because I'm quite sure that other councillors, other councillors have put them up. They're not mine, so I won't steal any other councillor's thunder, is what I'm saying. But rather, I will speak about the really big things that we've got going in this budget, which is really, really exciting. Obviously, at the start of the meeting, I mentioned the Aberfeldy Sports Club, and their pavilion is endorsed to be starting this year. So that is very exciting for Buckley Ward and very exciting for the club, and extremely well deserved and certainly needed. We'll get rid of the leaking ceilings that they've got there now, so that will be a great bonus to our community. We are expanding their use of by putting up lights to help the Women and Girls program at Strathmore Football Club. That's in the budget here for Buckley Ward again, and we're also redoing the turf at both Lebanon Reserve and Strathnava Reserve, which was deferred last year. So those two projects are up and running within this draft budget. There are some notes with what I moved regarding the East Keilor synthetic soccer pitch, and we actually didn't increase the charges for the East Keilor synthetic soccer pitch last year, and a year has gone by and the pitch up there is not in great condition, so I feel it's certainly warranted that there's a 0% increase. So that's part of what's been put forward tonight. One of the other big things with soccer is the $1 million soccer infrastructure fund, which was included in the draft budget. So that's very, very exciting because we really are pushing as a councillor group to get the soccer strategy recommendations within that up and running, and that infrastructure reserve will certainly go toward that when that comes to us for endorsement on how that is to be spent. There is also a point that I put in the draft budget regarding the Lincoln Park playground. I've had a lot of requests for improving that, so that's included in the draft budget. Lincoln Park is a playground that is very, very well used by our community, especially when we have the farmers market once a month. So a new playground there, bigger, better playground is desperately needed because it's certainly well served by our community and the Littlies love it, but just needs to be a lot better, will be a lot better. I think I'll leave it there. If I remember anything else, I'll finish it up but in my reply, but I'll leave it there for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Sharp, and thank you to all councillors and officers. There's a truckload of work that goes into the budget every year, as I'm sure everyone watching appreciates, and this one is no exception. Again, it's one that I'm really proud of. It delivers for all people in Moonee Valley, and I think it's really fair and it balances all of the needs of our community quite well. If you'll indulge me, because I did miss the draft budget meeting, just in highlighting a few particular projects that I'm really excited about. There's a lot of money going into about $2 million in shared path and walking and cycling path improvements, which is really hopefully a step in the right direction for improving how people can walk and ride around our city using active transport, and potentially in the future e-scooter as well. There's $2.1 million to roll out FOGO bins to all households, which is a really incredible undertaking. It won't be, I'm sure, without any hiccups, but we really look forward to helping all of our households reduce the amount of organics that is going into landfill, and therefore reducing the emissions that are coming from our community in Moonee Valley. Further to that, we have a carry forward for the Community Emissions Reductions Fund, and some instructions now from our task force on how to spend that. But council is investing itself in $350,000 to reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions in council operations. So I think that we're making we are a carbon neutral council, but we're taking bigger steps towards being able to do that without offsets. There is a huge amount of money going into improving and expanding open space, which we all know is really important and valued by our community. There's some great inclusions for sports clubs, which Councillor Sharp's already touched on, and I look forward to those increasing participation and the quality of participation for our clubs, which do so much for our city.
1 minute extension, Councillor Hodgson.
Oh gosh, that went quickly. Thank you, Mayor. Thank in advance the clubs that have that will be affected by a couple of grounds going offline. If I've only got a minute, I'll just quickly touch on the SES money. This came to us as a budget submission. We know the incredible work that SES Essendon do, and we had a request to include some money to support their volunteer group. And I think it's a really wonderful way to support an organisation that supports our community. Thanks.
Councillor Hodgson, just to clarify, you did have additional time there. It wasn't updated on the clock, just to check? Or you're just very succinct?
Look, it is succinct, but look, there's so much more that we could praise in this budget, but I'll leave it for other councillors to pick up. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Adams?
Thanks, Mayor. The budget is a rolling 4-year plan and a key accountability document that includes a 4-year council plan, a 10-year financial plan, a 4-year revenue and rating plan, the internal and external audit, and the annual report. The budget has been prepared in accordance with financial management principles and council's community engagement policy, while trying to balance service provision and capital works delivery. The budget process has been rigorous and challenging while being fiscally responsible. Our community is growing at a rapid rate. Our council assets require ongoing maintenance that are costly, and our needs as residents is constantly changing and evolving. So it's extremely challenging as a council to weigh up the competing needs of our community and the priorities that are identified so that we can proactively protect existing assets as well as invest in and deliver new assets that enhance our public spaces, including our roads, footpaths, facilities, infrastructure, open spaces and sporting facilities. The budget is proposing to deliver an operating surplus of $6.96 million and a capital works program of $51.9 million. Councillor Sharp and Councillor Hodgson have already mentioned a few exciting projects. Some of the projects that I'm really excited about is $250,000 towards the business case for Buckley Park Bowls Club upgrade, $50,000 for the design and construction of a new slide at Montgomery Park, Essendon, as well as reallocating $150,000 from the Cricket Nets renewal program for the implementation of some of the projects that haven't been delivered for the Montgomery Park Essendon master plan, and also a $50,000 allocation towards establishing a Cliff Allison Reserve, which is in Essendon Master Plan. So there's some exciting projects in Buckley Ward that we're all excited about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak? Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Bedio?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'll just touch on a couple of the projects that I'm really excited about in my ward, in Murnong. So there's $120,000 allocated for the Moonee Ponds Activity Centre for streetscape upgrades. Now they'll be done in consultation with the Traders Association, so we'll work with them to decide where that money should be invested. There's $5.12 million for the redevelopment of the Ascot Vale Library, and that's a massive redevelopment. It's something much needed and much loved in our community. The Soccer Infrastructure Reserve, as Councillor Sharp touched on, will be huge for our soccer community. There's also a number of things aside from the capital works that Council actually does that's funded through this budget that I wanted to touch on. So we immunise up to 8,500 people per year. Installation of 30,000 plants in our parks and conservation sites. Installation of 2,500 mature trees as part of our street planting program. There's a maintenance of 45 sports fields and maintenance of more than 414 kilometres of roads and 884 kilometres of shared pathways. So I think when you look at those numbers, we're doing a pretty good job. And I just want to thank all the officers for all their hard work in putting together this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment.
What is your amendment?
That's a good question. So my amendment is to change Part B of the motion to read: declare the rates and annual service charges for the 2023-24 rating year, commencing 1 July 2023 and ending 30 June 2024, as detailed in the budget 2023-24, with an adjustment to the green waste charge pensioner from an increase of 18.49% this financial year to a fair and reasonable increase of 2% or 2.00%, open brackets, being a charge of $45.80, 45 and 80, and then comma, and then continue in accordance with section 94(2)(e) and H of the Local Government Acts 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. As this will have financial implications and I haven't seen this amendment previously, I'll call a 15-minute adjournment for both finance and governance to assess the amendment. So we'll return in 15 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to our council meeting, and we're on item 9.5, the 2023-24 budget, and Councillor Nation has just moved an amendment which has been ticked off by our finance and governance team. Is there a seconder? Councillor Byrne. Councillor Nation.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank Councillor Byrne for seconding this amendment. Look, this amendment seeks to bring a small bit of relief to some of our more vulnerable residents in our community. We know we've got a significant cohort of pensioners, particularly up in Councillor Byrne's neck of the woods in Rosehill Ward. And while a green waste service charge is attributed to both pensioners and non-pensioners, my personal feeling is that that increase in the charge from last year to this year should not be a more substantial percentage increase for pensioners as opposed to every other resident. Now, our current proposed green waste service charge per rateable property in 23-24 for non-pensioners is an 18.45% increase. For our pensioners, it's an 18.49% increase. So we're talking an almost 20% increase in the charge. And for me, the irony is that this is for the green waste, which is something we're actually encouraging our community to do. We're encouraging them to join our recycling journey. So to slap pensioners with an almost 20% increase in their green waste services charge, I think is completely unfair. The amendment calls for a fair and reasonable increase of 2%. I'd be happy with it to stay at 0%, which is the $44.90. A 2% means that the hit on the budget is only around $37,000. Now, if you consider the amount of money we are spending in this budget, we're borrowing $16 million, $32,000 to help out our pensioners, to recycle, I think the 20% rise is completely unreasonable, and a 2% rise is a lot fairer. I would also put that I know there are a range of fees and charges that affect our pensioners in this budget that are going to make times even harder, particularly over the next 6 to 12 months. So our pensioners are still getting a 12.36% increase on their garbage charge. That's the same pensioners, non-pensioners, 12.36%. User charges in general are projected to go up 8.8%. We know a lot of those user charges do relate to our seniors and their access to our facilities. In total, we're recouping an extra $2.77 million in user fees, an extra $6.63 million in rates and charges, and therefore if we can make an adjustment to reduce that burden on our pensioners to help them recycle and help them to join our environmental journey, then I think that is the least we can do. So councillors, I would commend to you that we reduce the increase in the green waste service charges for pensioners from an 18.49% increase to a 2% increase, and I would seek your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Nation, for bringing this up. Look, I didn't support the draft budget, and I mentioned at the time that I had a lot of issues, and one of the issues is that I touched on was the cost of living and how much everything is costing. I think, Councillor Nation, this is one of a few changes that could potentially be made. What we don't want to see is that things becoming so unaffordable that things just get dumped everywhere around our city, and that's the harsh reality. I understand that getting rid of waste costs money, and there is an ability for council to pass that on, but on the other side it costs a lot of money for us to pick up dump rubbish, dump waste, whether it's green or not. So this is one step to make things a little bit better. It's a relatively small amount, being approximately $37,000. But I hear everyone that's been yelling out saying that everything's so expensive. Can we please make it cheaper? So we are. For pensioners, maybe not across the board at this point, but we're a council and we do have the ability to change these numbers. So if people are complaining about these things, that's what we're doing tonight. We are endorsing the budget. We have the ability, we've been voted in to make hard decisions, to make a balanced budget. This will still leave us with a balanced budget. And hopefully it will help some residents anyway. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Isa.
Look, I'm happy to support the amendment if it's been given the tick by our hardworking officers, and thanks for dealing with something that's brought to you at last minute like that. I did just want to, I guess, look, while I appreciate absolutely appreciate the desire to reduce charges for pensioners and looking at where vulnerable residents, where we can help them make savings. I guess, we're saving each household $7.40. So I don't like it, in one way it seems a little tokenistic to, if we really want to provide substantial assistance to pensioners, I'd probably, perhaps next year, if that's something that around the chamber that we really want to be trying to do, I'd perhaps be keen to work earlier and harder on saving pensioners and vulnerable residents more than $7.40. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Nation for bringing this up. This is actually fantastic. We try and do as much as we can for pensioners. We have a council rate rebate that we provide our pensioners. We actually wrote to the state government to reduce the rates back to 50% like they were in 1984, and they were never indexed. So back in 1984, pensioners were only paying 50% of their rate. Now they're paying, nearly 100%. But this is great. Look, as much as it's tokenistic, as much as it's only just a couple of dollars here, I'd rather probably even give more money and and reduce it down to even less than that, or even for free, because I'd rather do this than to throw big dollars to corporations and entities that have got plenty of money behind them and don't need that. I'd rather support the small person, the small individual here. And I think this is a great move.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'll also support the change, but I would make the point that by changing the percentage, as Councillor Isa said, I think if this had come a little bit earlier, I think that I would have perhaps proposed that we consider a rebate rather than a reduction in the percentage increase, because a reduction in a percentage increase has flow-on effects for future years' budget, and it'll end up, not next year or the year after, but down the track. There'll be a big disparity between the rates now, and whilst I'm supportive of anything that we can do to help those that are having trouble with cost of living pressures, and was very supportive, I'm glad Councillor Sypek brought up the rebate program that we've recently written to the state government about, because it obviously wasn't doing what it originally intended to do. I think that there's hopefully not negative impacts that come from this, but in general, I think I would be more supportive of a rebate rather than this proposal, but happy to support this as it's the one that's on the floor. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? As there has been some dissent, I'll ask Councillor Nation if he...
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the commentary around the table, but that concept that Councillor Hodgson has raised is that's money that will have a flow-on effect. We'll never be able to recoup it. That's the whole point. That's money that stays in the pockets of our pensioners. So that is the exact point of why $7 now, down the track, council will never be able to get that money back. It'll have a flow-on effect for 10, 15 years. So that is money that will stay with those pensioners for 10 to 15 years. I also highlighted that, yes, $7, it mightn't be a lot to many, but having worked in the past month with the council that moved their annual budget back in May, where there was a rate rise of only 6% on the fees and charges, and to see those pensioners that were affected by that over the next month cancel their memberships because an $8.40 weekly membership to go and do active leisure is too much, then I'm sorry, but $7, as tokenistic as people may call it, is still $7 that stays in those pensioners' pockets. We're borrowing $16 million in this budget. The flow-on effect to our ratepayers of borrowing $16 million is going to be much greater than a flow-on effect of us putting $7 back in pensioners' pockets. So I'd attest and get my fellow councillors to please think about what we are trying to do. We're trying to encourage people to recycle. We're trying to get pensioners to recycle. So let's not slug them with an 18.49% increase to make them recycle. So, councillors, I would commend this amendment. And if Councillor Hodgson wants to propose an increased rebate to pensioners from $20 to $50, be my guest. I'm happy to second that motion as well.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. I'll put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. We now return to the substantive motion, and Councillors Sharp, Hodgson, Bedio and Adams have spoken. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to commend the CEO, the officers, all the staff. They've done a great job putting this budget together. I'm pleased that a lot of this budget has actually gone across quite a lot of community groups, sporting groups, even other groups that are non-sporting. It's just been a win-win right across the board for everyone. I'm very, very pleased that it's actually run quite smoothly. It's actually been quite good. But the only thing I worry about is once again what Councillor Burns said, the cost of living, all the increases. Not happy with the rate rise that we're going through. I would have preferred to have a zero rate rise or just a freeze for this year or next year. But that is not to be. It is, what we've got here. Yeah, look, I think it's a balanced budget, and with the slight amendment that Councillor Nation brought here is fantastic. And like I said, I'd rather help the small individuals and the small groups than help big corporations and entities and just give them money from the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment, please.
Yep. What is your amendment?
Just want to add a point H to the motion. I think we're up to H.
Just ask governance to scroll down on the screen. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. So point H to read, note the confidential Windy Hill project prepared by Essendon Football Club, and request the CEO bring a report to council on this proposal and options for consideration in alignment with the mid-year budget review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Is there a seconder? Councillor Isa.
Mayor, I don't know. Sorry to speak out of turn, and it's not a point of clarification. this motion refers to a confidential Windy Hill project. I've previously declared a conflict of interest in projects in the Windy Hill precinct. As I'm not 100% sure what this is referring to, I will err on the side of caution and declare a conflict for reasons probably I'm not 100% sure, because I'm not 100% sure of what this is and it's not included in any budget documentation or any submissions. It is in a submission? Okay, it's not in a submission. So I will err on the side of caution and declare a conflict, I guess for reasons previously disclosed, and we'll leave the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. We'll give Councillor Nation a moment to leave the chamber. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. Windy Hill is beloved by locals and AFL supporters alike. In addition to AFL football, the Windy Hill precinct also accommodates other sporting usages, including cricket and bowls, and a successful gymnasium and aquatic centre. It is a place where people play, recreate and gather. Essendon Football Club's desire is to enable Windy Hill to become the new matchday home for the Bombers AFLW team, as well as existing VFLW and VFL teams. As part of Council's long-term vision, MV 2040, Council identified Windy Hill as a defining element of Essendon's character and committed to advocate for its public activation. While the Windy Hill grounds have been a prominent sporting location for more than a century, the facilities are tired and a new vision and life for the reserve is needed to recognise the future needs of our local community. The Essendon Football Club have said in a media statement previously, we are committed to ensuring the people of Moonee Valley feel connected to the precinct and that the site is used on a far more regular basis than it is now. And of course, we aspire to deliver a premium venue for girls and women's football that is unmatched in our state. The current Windy Hill football and cricket ground is located in Napier Street, Essendon, on Crown land reserved for public recreation. Council is the Committee of Management for the Crown lease, and the Essendon Football Club retains the use of buildings on the site as the principal leaseholder, and due to the poor conditions of the building assets and infrastructure, Essendon Football Club has proposed the Windy Hill Precinct redevelopment project to reinvigorate the iconic Windy Hill Reserve. A range of funding sources are being sought, and Council have been working with the Essendon Football Club on the project to significantly upgrade the existing Windy Hill site and deliver new assets and amenities for the precinct and the broader region. We have very recently had a confidential update, and so this amendment is asking the CEO to bring a report to Council on this proposal for consideration by councillors at the mid-year budget review in an effort to continue talks with the Essendon Football Club about the community benefits and future of Windy Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. And I'll remind councillors on this debate that there is confidential information and to not stray into bringing that into the public realm. Councillor Isler, would you like to speak? No? Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I will. Look, I won't be supporting this amendment. I am really disappointed in it. I think it's quite out of line, to be honest. We had a budget process that we went through. Councillor Adams, your own words was that councillors could put in a wish list. You did not. You knew about this project and you did not put it in at the appropriate time. Following that, it was open for public submissions. Windy Hill was not mentioned once from anyone from the public. And yet we had some beautiful projects. We had Strathmore Heights Netball Club, needing more netball courts for girls' participation. We had a bowls club. We had so many things that were going to enliven Moonee Valley or increase participation, and yet the one that's been plucked out of thin air has been the one that owns 101 gambling machines on site. So no, I won't be supporting this. I think it's really disappointing, and this is not the way we do this. Well, we should be doing it. To be honest, it's just mind-boggling. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Sypek.
Mr Mayor, I'm not making an amendment, but maybe just a grammar correction where it says by the Essendon Football Club and request to the CEO to bring a report, not just bring a report.
I'll note that. Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Unable to amend a amendment, but I think how it reads is implementable without that change. But thank you for bringing it to my attention. Did you want to speak to the motion, the amendment?
I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you. This one is, for starters, it's difficult to talk about because it's confidential. Taking on Councillor Byrne's take on this, I think it puts us potentially between a rock and a hard place for doing this now, but I need to defend Councillor Adams because I wouldn't have thought that she would be in the position to put this in as a wish list that was mentioned. I think that's a little bit unfair. I don't think that dispersion should be made, to be honest. So what has happened is we have a proposal before us, but for me, the budget is all about transparency and being open to the public about what is in the budget. And the issue of confidentiality has been raised with me around this table tonight, and I think it has made me nervous because, like I said, the budget is a public document that is consulted on. And this proposal effectively hasn't been consulted on because it has come to us late, but it wasn't in the form of an actual budget submission. Look, I think, well, I'll speak for myself. I would love to see Windy Hill activated, and we have been talking for at least 2 years now to enable activation. But for me, I think we're still a long way away from it, and that's no fault of us as a council. We don't have the lease, but we are managing the land because it is Crown land. Now, I'm trying to be very conscious here as not to say anything confidential. It's just, we shouldn't have that restriction on us when we're talking about the budget. The budget is paid for by our ratepayers. And to sit here and not be able to discuss something openly that is potentially going to be paid for by our ratepayers, I think for me says it all in my approach to what we should be doing around this table, I guess. So I understand the intent of the motion, absolutely, because like I said, we've been speaking about this for a while, and I think we all want to see Windy Hill activated. But now, in this process, is probably not the right time because we had 100 submitters to our budget and only one has been endorsed.
30-second extension to Councillor Sharp.
Sorry. And it's, yeah, I think either way, the proposal, I would say, has to come to us either way. It's not something that's going to be lost. I'm just not confident that this is the right way to go about it if we are supposed to be open and transparent to the community about where the money is being spent.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, let's picture this. The state and federal government, they passed their budget with some sneaky little confidential added to it. Imagine the outcry from the community. Now, if they don't do it, why should we do it? This is, as Councillor Byrne and Councillor Sharp said, This is a confidential item. They should have been dealt separately, away from the budget. It should be transparent. You know, if this is going to make it in the budget now, then how is the community going to know what we voted on? How can we sit here and say we are being transparent? Because we're not. The state and federal won't do stuff like this. I certainly won't be voting for this, and I certainly won't be putting myself in a position to vote on something confidential with the ratepayers' money. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Sorry, we'll see how we go. Apologies for the background noise. I just wanted to speak to say that I'm happy to support this on the basis that, you know, revitalising Windy Hill's a clear advocacy priority of ours, which we've spent a lot of time and effort on over the last 12 months. I do appreciate the conversation around the chamber about that, but also happy to support this on the basis that it makes no change to our current budget. It proposes a way forward to get a report to council so that it can be discussed at that point. You know, in future, it may not be subject to the same confidentiality. And by in future, I mean at the time of the mid-year budget review. I agree we shouldn't be spending money without telling people where it goes. But this motion amendment tonight doesn't seek to do that. It just seeks to continue a conversation about an advocacy priority that we have at council. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Bedio, you're the only councillor who hasn't spoken. Would you like to speak?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Look, this is a really difficult one for me because I agree with points from both sides on this. I very much support this project, the project that's being discussed. I'm very conscious about what I can and can't say, but I definitely support the project. I support the reinvigoration of Windy Hill. It's something that Councillor Byrne and I pushed hard for over the last mayoral term. We met with many politicians and advocated really hard for this project, so it's something that we both, I can say, firmly believe in as a project. My concern is the optics in how this is being added to the budget. I believe that this project can continue to operate in the background without it having to be put into the budget. I believe that officers will continue to work with relevant stakeholders and bring reports back as required. Alternatively, there's other routes, whether that's a notice of motion to bring those reports back. The mid-year financial review happens in any case, and items can be brought to that or referred to that through notice of motions in any case. So my gut feel is that it's not the right time to bring this up. And I agree with Councillor Sharp's notion that the budget is all about transparency, and I'm worried that a lot of the good work that we've done in this budget might be overshadowed by the concern from residents that there is a confidential item listed at the end of the budget. So for that reason, as much as I support this project, and I want to assure councillors that it's something that I continue to support, I can't support the terminology as it is written in the proposed amendment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Councillor Adams, would you like a right of reply?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, all this amendment is doing is signalling goodwill for the project, which we have endorsed as part of our advocacy strategy. Councillor Byrne is correct. We did have our draft budget submission process and councillor input opportunities. However, this project has been on our radar for a long time, as Councillor Sharp has stated. Due to the confidential nature of the update, all I'm going to say is that we weren't in a position to submit as part of the draft budget, and councillors are well aware of this. So I think it's unfair to state that it was an oversight at the time of the draft budget. This is simply an effort to continue talks with Essendon Football Club about the community benefits and future of Windy Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. I will put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Isa, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Tyson. All those against? Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek. On the casting vote of the Mayor, I declare that amendment carried. We now will welcome back Councillor...
Mayor, I'd like to move a further amendment whilst Councillor Nation's still out of the room. It's to do with this point.
Yes. What is your amendment?
Thanks, Mayor. Could I please delete the words after proposal? So delete and options for consideration in alignment with the mid-year budget review.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Is there... apologies, Councillor Byrne. Yes, Councillor Nation, apologies. There's another amendment relating to your conflict. Please come in and see what the amendment is. Would you like to read out the words again, Councillor Bone?
Thanks. So the substantive had H as note the confidential Windy Hill project prepared by the Essendon Football Club and request the CEO bring a report to Council on this proposal and options for consideration in alignment with the mid-year budget review. My amendment is to strike out the words after proposal.
And insert the word to.
Sorry, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Nation?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I guess it's very difficult because that obviously is now the substantive. I don't know what happened in the previous vote, but I take it that is the substantive now.
Yes.
So do I have a conflict on the substantive because now all that... I guess I had a conflict on the amendment. If the amendment has been carried and becomes the substantive...
Councillor Nation, I would propose, and I'm more than happy if you feel the need for us to seek an adjournment for governance advice, but my proposal going forward would be to split the vote A through G and a separate vote on H for your benefit.
Yes, I'd
if you
appreciate
feel.
that. And then if this amendment is solely on part H, the
Yes.
new part H,
Yes.
then I'll declare a conflict in that, not knowing entirely what it's about, but again, difficult when it's not part of the budget report. So I will again leave the chambers. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Thank you for your amendment, Councillor Byrne. I will call for a seconder. Councillor Bedio. Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I obviously didn't support this to be added into the substantive, but now that it is, I suppose I can at least try to remove some words that I have issues with. I feel like this is a second bite of a cherry when we've gone through a lot of work to get to the point where we were in the budget, and then to say we're going to put it in at the mid-year budget, or options for consideration in alignment with the mid-year budget review. I don't think that I necessarily have an issue with the report coming back, because as mentioned previously, there will be a report coming back. I don't think that that would be confidential. We obviously get updated on projects regularly, but it might be that the report needs to be timed post the AFL W season, or the timing might not be right, and I would prefer to have a report that has all of the required information as opposed to one that gets rushed through to align with our budgetary processes, when if we wanted it in the budget and we already know that at this point in time, then it should just be in the budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Bedio, would you like to speak to the amendment?
As I said earlier, I'm pretty confident that a report on this project would be brought to Council in any case, and I do agree that the report should be brought to Council at the appropriate time and not in accordance with our budgetary timelines. Look, not much further to add other than I believe this is a better outcome for the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Isa.
Thanks. Look, I won't be supporting the amendment. Where this motion's about the budget, so this clause that was inserted in there needs to relate to the budget. That's what we're debating tonight. And I think the intention of the point in point H is to help find a process for considering the proposal, and that not being tonight, but to find a budgetary related process that helps us to respond appropriately to what has been an advocacy project for some time. And I wasn't part of the Canberra delegation in October last year, so I don't know what discussions were had when the Mayor at the time and other councillors went to Canberra to spruik this project and to spruik council's support for this project. But I do know that in our advocacy document, we've committed to supporting this project, and I think that what's been set out in point H is setting out for all stakeholders and to help stakeholders understand where we might be going and the processes that they can then work around. And I think it's a fair and transparent process that's been set out there and helps everyone to understand what steps might be going forward from here.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. Totally agree with everything that Councillor Isa has said. It's exactly right. It's part of our advocacy strategy, and I think this is just about, I guess, moving discussions along and, reaffirming our commitment as part of our advocacy strategy for the project. And giving, another opportunity, I guess, at another budget time to consider some options that might be available to us in moving along this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you. Just quickly, councillors are mentioning advocacy, and anyone watching might be suddenly saying why, well, if this has been a major advocacy item on our agenda, which it has been for the last couple of years, why are suddenly councillors changing the goalposts potentially? And I just want to point out to anyone who may be thinking that this is not the case. This is not about us changing the goalposts and not advocating anymore for this project. And it gets me upset to think that is the scenario that now we're sitting in when it shouldn't be. And it's confidential, so I can't go into the details, but basically certain criteria has not been met. And now we're put in this position tonight to potentially look at funds down the track. It's just been mentioned that this is a budget item. 4 of us just voted stating that it should not be a budget item because we're not even at that stage yet. I'm here elected as a councillor to vote on things that are transparent and open to our community. And like I said before, every single one of our 140,000 ratepayers paid for this budget. I want to see Windy Hill activated. I have never strayed away from that fact. But it is not the time or place now. And if I could go into it you know what, we need to be able to go into this in greater detail so the whole community can see it. Because having it confidential is not right, and I do not want us as a group to be looked at that now we're suddenly straying from our advocacy priorities, because that is not the case. This is the wrong way to do it. Councillor Byrne was right in saying this is the wrong way to do it, and this is just making us all look embarrassed, because look what's ended up as. And I'm upset now because I tell you what, I support Windy Hill, but we are not even in the position to decide on this yet because we don't even have the information in front of us.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Back in 2004, when I first got on council, I got a report on this precinct in 2004. And I've had numerous reports on this place before. And we've been advocating, and we've been going to Canberra, and we've been going to Parliament and everything. And everyone just keeps advocating and advocating. And what happened? The whole place has gone into disrepute. The place is really in a bad, shocking way. The only thing that has stood the test of time is the actual grass. The grass, ladies and gentlemen. Mr Mayor, the grass. Fantastic. But we're advocating? Seriously, we've had so many reports that I think the CEO could probably just pull them all out and we'll probably have the same report that we've had all this other time. And I think the community know what state Windy Hill is in. And I think everyone knows what the advocacy is. But it's confidential and it's been snuck in, like I said before. You think the federal and state would do this? No way. Why are we doing it? Why are we sneaking this in? It's not right. And I support Windy Hill. I support it to be redeveloped or whatever they want to do to it. I support it. I think it needs work, but not this way, not this sneaky, underhanded way.
Sorry, Mayor, I'd like to call a point of order under
What
clause
is your point of order?
55.5. I'd like to ask that the words sneaking this in be withdrawn, please. I think that
I withdraw, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Will you finish speaking?
Sorry,
Councillor
Mayor,
Sypek.
point of clarification. So was it a point of order?
That was a point of order, yes.
And so what was it upheld or not
Offensive
upheld?
language. Well, Councillor Sypek withdrew it. That was the point of order.
But I'm just asking, so you
the
upheld
comment
it?
was withdrawn, yeah.
I don't know, as a point of clarification, what clause under the governance rule is that?
Withdraw the point of order, thank you.
So can I reinstate sneaking?
Sorry, I was still asking a point of clarification as to what under the governance rules that something can be withdrawn.
The result of a point of order being upheld, Councillor Byrne, is that the Speaker withdrew the comments. The Speaker withdrew the comments before a ruling was made, so there was nothing to rule on.
Sorry, as another point of clarification, in the governance rules, it says that you have to say that it's upheld or not.
The point of order is not upheld. The comments were withdrawn. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Sypek, you still had speaking time. Would you like to finish?
Yeah, so to sneak it underhanded, am I allowed to put it back in? No?
Is that a point of clarification?
I don't know. If the point of order's been withdrawn and you've cautioned me on and you called it offensive, I'd like you to withdraw that comment that it was offensive language.
Councillor Sypek, I was quoting the governance rules. Please do not continue down this path.
I'm not continuing, but if I have
Councillor
to withdraw,
Sypek,
you
is
have to withdraw
is this
as well.
a point of clarification or a point of order?
Well, I don't know. But let me...
Councillor Sypek, you are warned. Thank you.
Is that a yellow card?
Councillor Sypek, you are given a second and final warning.
So what you're going to kick me out now while we're
Mayor,
discussing...
point of
Councillor
order,
Sypek.
point of order 55.4, the chair must not accept conduct that constitutes improper behaviour or conduct contrary to the code of conduct. 2.1 being treat with courtesy and respect, and I don't believe that you were treating Councillor Sypek with courtesy and respect in that situation.
Councillors, I'm going to call a 15-minute adjournment for everyone to consider their behaviour. Thank you. Welcome back everyone to the council meeting for the 27th of June, and we're on 2023/24 budget, hearing an amendment to point H to delete the words "and options for consideration" in alignment with the mid-year budget review. Councillor Byrne, before the meeting, moved a point of order against the chair. After conferring with governance, a councillor can't move a point of order against the chair. We now return to debate, where every councillor has spoken apart from Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Hodgson.
Mayor, as a point of clarification, can you just confirm what the governance rule that you're referring to? Thanks.
The governance rule is that point of orders can be moved for very specific reasons. Chair is to decide point of orders. There are processes in place if councillors disagree with rulings on point of orders. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Hodgson, would you like to speak?
So, point of clarification, what are the challenges to the chair? What did you say about the point of order, that someone can challenge the chair?
Councillor Sypek, there are clear passages in our governance rules regarding disagreeing with the chair.
Okay, could you let us know what that is?
It's point 60, Councillor Sypek. You can look that up.
Point 60.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Hodgson, you've indicated no. In that case, I will ask the mover whether she would like a right of reply.
Sorry, I thought I was the mover. Well, I think that if we see what's happened in the past half hour or so, I think it's probably been highlighted that there is a lot of concerns in regards to this point. I feel like the debate has had some really interesting commentary for and against, and I think that there is a lot of councillors that are very uneasy with this point. I think there was a point made that by removing this bit, it sort of doesn't really align with the budget, and I actually do agree with that, but I actually think I don't really know why the whole amendment was allowed, considering it's in regards to the mid-year budget review when we're doing the budget now. So perhaps the whole thing shouldn't have really gone ahead potentially. Yeah, look, this is just a bit, I don't agree with it. As mentioned across the room, it's got nothing to do whether we support the project or the advocacy. This is around the process of how we're putting things into the budget and, and what we're potentially flagging for mid-year budget reviews, hence striking it out. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. I will put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek. All those against? Councillor Adams, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Tyson. On the casting vote of the Mayor, I declare that amendment lost. We now return to the substantive motion, where councillors will welcome back Councillor Nation to the chamber. Welcome back, Councillor Nation, and as previously discussed, we will put the vote A through G to a separate vote to H to accommodate your previously declared conflict of interest. Councillors that have spoken are Councillors Sharp, Hodgson, Bedio, Adams and Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak?
Yep.
Councillor Nation.
Substantive, Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And look, I first of all want to thank officers for putting together a budget. It's always a difficult process to deal with a considerable range of competing needs, both within the community, but also 9 councillors who have different ideas on revenue, expenditure, capital expenditure, and even rates and charges. For me, there's some things in this budget that probably don't sit that well. One is that the actual cents in the dollar rate rise for rateable residential properties is not going up by 3.5%, which is the rate cap. You'll see on page 30 of the budget that the general rate for rateable residential properties that's levied as general rates under section 158 of the Act is going up 6.17%. For those that may still be watching, when you get your rates notice, there is that line item, which is basically the cents, the CIV charge. It was 0.170, it is now 0.181. So that is a 6.17% rise in rates. I would be comfortable with that figure being the rate cap at 3.5. I still think there is a challenge, or council should face the challenge of not just accepting the rate cap of 3.5%, but looking at not taking that full amount. Last year we took the full rate cap at 1.75, maybe sitting at about 1.75 would be a better figure to consider given the cost of living pressures people are currently going through. I brought up some significant changes or rises in the fees and charges that again have that on-flow effect to our residents. There is an 8.8 overall increase in user charges, 2.77 million increase total amount in user fees. The rates and charges portion is about 6.6 million. But I guess the thing that really sticks with me is the fact we're spending $51 million on capital works projects. We only have a rates, 24 million of that can be funded by rates, so there's a considerable shortfall. We're borrowing $16 million. We borrowed $23 million last year. At the moment, the council will be almost $50 million in debt. If we cannot fund the capital works program with the rates that we can gather now, why do we think we're going to be able to fund it with rates from future years when there's capital works to pay for then? You look at the Victorian government, you look at the Australian government, a little bit of debt has turned into a massive part of debt. It's not like the money just suddenly appears in 3 years
1
and
minute
everything
extension
is good. Thank you, Mayor. So I would ask councillors to consider whether or not a $16 million borrow to put us in close to $50 million of debt with probably another $30 million of borrowings over the next 3 years as per the 4-year plan, whether or not that is a legacy you want to leave our council with of being almost $80 million in debt, and where on earth the ratepayers in the future are going to find that money to be able to fund not just the capital works they want to do in that year, but the capital works we're deciding to do this year and last year and the year before. We haven't even found money for a highball stadium. There are some considerable promises in the long-term capital works budget that I'm not sure we're going to be able to spend. My issue here also is that I don't even know what point H is, and I'm being asked to consider a budget where I don't know if point H has $50 million of budget implications and will affect the top half of the budget, or if it's got $0 of budget implications. So it puts me in a really awkward position for a matter to be brought up that's not in the budget, that hasn't been consulted on, and now I don't even know if I can consider the budget because I don't know what the financial implications are in point H. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Considering what the substantive is, although noting that it might be broken up, I'm not sure whether I'll be supporting the budget. I don't want that to seem negative against anyone who, as I mentioned before, put so much work into the budget, whether that was the community members or staff or councillors or whoever it may be. There is such a big process to get to where we are. Sorry, Mayor, you're on the phone. It is really distracting and I find it disrespectful.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. A lot goes into a council meeting, including future motions and reports, but thank you for your concern. Please continue.
I've lost where I'm at. Can you remember what I said, or you don't know? you remember what I was saying, Mayor?
Councillor Byrne, do you have anything further to add?
I can't actually remember where I was at in my speech because you were on my phone whilst I was. Thanks. Thanks, Councillor Nation. There are some really great projects in the budget. There was a lot of work that came that went into getting to this point, but I do have concerns about the considerable debt. I think you spoke about the legacy that this council will be leaving and the considerable amount of debt that will be leaving future councils. I find it really, I find that really difficult, to be honest. I feel that sometimes the media are always just splashing around these really big numbers. Oh, this costs $1 billion and this costs this and that, and people sort of can become a bit disillusioned with numbers. But at the end of the day, like, it is so much more debt than this council has ever been in, and it's putting us, we're in that medium risk category, and I don't really like being there. And as Councillor Nation said, there's still really big projects that we haven't been able to deliver, whether it's a highball or whether it's the Windy Hill project, or there are so many things that the community want that just still haven't been done, and I don't know how we'll ever be able to do it or how future councils will ever be able to do it. And on top of that, we're stinging people with the highest possible rate rise that we can, which I don't think is necessarily what people want or can afford in this particular time. So
1 minute extension, Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah. So anyway, this budget, there's a bit of a saying about third-year budgets can be a bit messy, and I don't know how long this actual debate has gone for, probably an hour, possibly longer. So I think this now ticks that box, unfortunately, and I did raise concerns at the draft budget stage for a few things, and I still have those concerns. So I'm not sure how I will be voting tonight. It'll be interesting to hear the rights of replies, but I do appreciate.
Point of clarification, please.
Point of clarifications can't be moved while the speaker is
sorry,
speaking.
Councillor Byrne.
Does anybody else want to interrupt while I speak? It's just a random. I'm done, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Adams, did you have a point of clarification?
Yes. Through you, Chair, to the CEO, I was just wondering whether the borrowings were a resolution that was passed in the previous council term.
CEO, do you feel in a position to respond?
My understanding is the borrowing is based on what a council decided long-term capital works plan back in 2019 or 20. I cannot be sure, but what I am certain is none of the borrowings proposed in 23-24 budget is new and is not showing in last year's 4-year projection. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Isa, you're the only councillor who hasn't spoken. Would you like to speak to the budget?
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to start by talking about some of the really amazing projects that are being funded in this budget. We are rolling out FOGO to people who've never been able to access green bins before. We are updating the Ascot Vale Library. We are planting trees that will cost $1 million, I think $1 million worth of trees. We are upgrading about 5, I think it's 5, it might be 4 different pavilions. And we are doing all of the usual paths and sports upgrades and umpteen other projects that we try to squeeze into what is actually quite a small $40 to $50 million capital works budget. We have a medium size budget compared to many other councils, and we try to make it work as best we can across the competing and multiple demands, and I think this budget strikes a really good balance. Just to speak to some of the additions tonight, thank you so much to the SES for making their budget submission. The SES has done the work of many council workers, I think, over the past year, and we are indebted to them. And if we can repay our debt to them with a small amount of money tonight, I think it's well deserved, and I know that will be put to such good use. With respect to the Fairbairn Park, thank you very much, Councillor Sharp, for moving the amendment to add some consultation around that to make sure that all of the users in Fairbairn are able to look at a proposal, because we don't actually have a proposal properly on the table, to actually look at a proposal and give some feedback on how that might work. I also just wanted to touch quickly, if I may, on climate. We haven't added anything into the budget, the final budget, and I know that there were a number of submissions that asked us to add some more money. The reason we haven't is because we still do have $800,000 to spend in alignment with the recommendations from the task force. I'm really looking forward to deciding on that expenditure and doing what we can to meet our really ambitious target of reducing our carbon emissions by 44% on 2017 levels by 2025, which is a really, as I say, ambitious goal for us to reach, but we're very grateful to the input of some hardworking, many hardworking...
1 minute extension, Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. People around the municipality who are helping us to achieve that target. Just touching on the comments around debt. Look, councils can't go into crippling debt like federal or state governments may, because our debt limits are restricted, thankfully. So there is a limit on the amount of debt that we can go into, which is 60% of our rates revenue. And as the CEO's explained, the debt program was mapped out in alignment with MV 2040. Now, our problem is that the commitments made under MV 2040 are unaffordable, and we've made minimal changes to that. We've done our best to meet those commitments. They're not affordable in the long term, and we're going to have to work really hard to reduce our expenditure. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. As there's been dissent, I'll ask Councillor Sharp whether she would...
Have I spoken, Mr Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Sypek, you've spoken. Councillor Sharp, would you like a right of reply? No? In that case, I'll put, as previously mentioned, the vote in two parts. A through G is what we will vote on first, followed by H. I will now put A through G to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Tyson. All those against? That is Councillor Byrne, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sypek. I declare that carried, and will now ask Councillor Nation to leave for the next vote. I'll now put point H to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Isa, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Tyson. All those against? That is Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek. I declare that carried on the casting vote of the Mayor. And we'll welcome Councillor Nation back into the room. Welcome back, Councillor Nation. And look, I just want to say to colleagues, members of the gallery and people watching from home that an extremely robust debate in the chamber does not take away from all councillors' contribution to the budget. What a lot of people in the community don't know is that this process starts really late January. And so I'd like to thank councillors, our CFO and the finance team, as well as our executive for their work on the budget over that time. And I feel that there's something for every councillor's constituency and suburb in the budget, so thank you. Before we move on to item 9.6, I'll ask if there's a mover and seconder that council resolves to move item 9.9, response to notice of motion number 2021/34, Scout Hall audit, to be heard as the next item on the agenda. Moved Councillor Bedio, seconded Councillor Byrne. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. We now move on to response to notice of motion number 2021/34, Scout Hall audit. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move to seek a deferral to the next council meeting, please.
Seek to defer to the next council meeting. Council resolves to seek to defer to the next council meeting.
It doesn't need to be seek. I guess I'm seeking from you, so the motion would be... council resolves to defer the report to the next council meeting.
The report to the next council meeting. Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Nation, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I will, and I know the Scouts are with us tonight. An email arrived in our inboxes at 3:34 that I haven't had time to look at or process. Obviously, it was just before the meeting, and in order to do the report due diligence, given it was a notice of motion that I brought to council, I would like to have full consideration of those facts and views that I would have thought would have been picked up in the report and the stakeholder analysis, but obviously weren't if there was still concern. Emailed through at 3:34 this afternoon, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Bedio, would you like to speak to the motion?
Nothing further to add.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. My only thought with this one, Councillor Nation, is if it is the next council meeting and it is a notice of motion that you have spent a lot of time working towards, earlier on in this meeting you did put in a leave of absence. Now, as the mover of the motion, you won't be able to further change it unless you were to withdraw it, or alternatively there could be an amendment made potentially to this if there was an indication potentially in your closing, because I'm not sure whether this deferral motion is actually fit for what the intention was, hence showing that I'm not sure about this one. I always think that it's really important on these to get the right decision, and whilst it can be I really sympathise with people in the gallery tonight who may want to get some sort of a result. I think that it is better to get the right result than a rushed result if new information has come to light, which it has. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak? As there,
Mayor, can I please move an amendment?
You may. What's your amendment?
That council resolves to defer the report to a meeting in August.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Is there a...
And delete the...
following words.
Sorry, the council resolves to defer the report to a council meeting in August 2023. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I can't. No, you can't.
Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Byrne.
I think I touched on why this. I know Councillor Nation has put a lot of time and work. From memory, you were a previous Scout, a very proud previous Scout, and I think it's something that you add a lot of value into the council chamber in regards to this. And I think that the intention of you putting up a deferral motion in the first place was so we got the right result, and then I think that it was probably just a bit of oversight that there's obviously a leave of absence tied in. I think it is, if we can make it happen, that somebody who moves an original notice of motion can be there for when the report is returned to the chamber. I think that is always, that should be a preference. And I don't believe that there's necessarily a really strict time frame on this one. I don't think a month is going to catastrophically derail the report or the outcomes. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. And I might just ask comms if they can check Councillor Byrne's volume in the chamber and just if that could potentially be turned up as it's a little bit quiet. Councillor Hodgson, would you like to speak to the amendment? No? Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Byrne. Look, it was more about ensuring that the email and the questions and information raised in the email were considered. Given that there was a fair bit of substance in that email, then August probably gives officers a little bit more time just to provide information on that email. It's not necessarily about me, it's about getting this report right, but I do appreciate it. I do like to give Mum a shout out. She was our Kayla at First Titan for a considerable period of time. And I did get my Premier Scout Award, which is now the Australian Scout Award, in 1998 when they were just launching. So fond memories, and I'd be very happy for it to wait till August to have more input. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Isa.
Look, I won't be supporting the deferral of the report, so I won't support the amendment, but I wanted to explain that I'm not supporting the amendment because I'm not supporting the deferral. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Nation, Sharp, Hodgson, Sypek, Tyson. All those against? Councillor Isa. I declare that amendment carried to form part of the substantive motion. We now return to the substantive motion, where Councillor Byrne, you had the call.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm happy as the motion currently reads.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Isa.
Look, I won't be supporting the deferral. We have answers to the points that was emailed through at 6:27, and so I think we're in a position to vote on the matter. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I will put...
Mayor, can I foreshadow motion if it gets lost? Thanks.
Thank you. I will put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek. All those against? That is Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Tyson. That motion is carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 9.6, adoption of Council Plan and Health Plan Initiatives 2023-24. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Move the officer's recommendation, Mayor.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
The council plan sets out, so I was going to find the exact number. I think the number has been increased, but it's just above 24 particular initiatives that we will be completing in the next 12 months. Thanks to officers who've taken on board feedback from councillors to, I think, make some of these stronger and I guess more pointed, and to really reflect some things.
Mayor,
that
I'm sorry, can I please move a procedural motion that the debate be adjourned for 5 minutes? under clause 46.5.1.
Councillor Byrne, could you please repeat your procedural motion?
Debate be adjourned. Well, if you want to give me the time, to 10:19 p.m. today.
Councillor Byrne, would it satisfy you for me to call
I'm just mindful we've lost a councillor. I just want to check on their well-being.
Certainly, I'll call an adjournment without your procedural motion if you're fine with that. I'll call an adjournment till 10:20 for councillors to have a break. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to the council meeting on the 27th of June. We are up to item 9.6, adoption of council plan and health plan initiatives 2023-24, moved by Councillor Isa, seconded by Councillor Bedio, and Councillor Isa had the call.
Thank you. Just to pick up where I left off, I was just saying that thank you to officers for working with councillors to help us to strengthen some of these actions even further and make them particularly specific and pointed to really set out, I think, what we're hoping to achieve, some of the things we're hoping to achieve in the next 12 months, because of course this isn't an exhaustive list of the work that council does and the work that we're hoping to do for the community. If anyone is looking, though, for a bit of a snapshot of some of the really interesting things that officers are working on, this is a good place to turn. There are some really interesting projects being delivered. And look, I do also want to point out that some of these things have been initiated by councillors, and one of those things I was talking with Murnong colleagues about today and congratulating Councillor Bedio for really championing some of the work around the DDA compliance of our buildings. And one of the actions, which is F4.1, is continuing that work. So reviewing disability access of council-owned property as part of condition assessments and audit reporting in accordance with the council resolution. So this is where some of our norms and our resolutions then work their way into these council plan initiatives and then translate into action. And it's our way of tracking those initiatives. There are many other things. Some of them revolve around the reduction of carbon emissions. Some of them are around road safety improvements, including the Essendon North Junction and other points on Mount Road, which have also been the subject matter of motions to the council and advocacy from around the chamber. So, as I said, if people want a bit of a snapshot of the work that council is doing, the council plan and initiatives are a good place to turn. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, man. Look, I concur with Councillor Isa. This is a really exciting council plan, probably my favourite so far. And thank you, Councillor Isa, for pointing out F4.1, something I'm really proud of. As a first-term councillor, something you find is that change happens slowly, and sometimes when we advocate for things it takes a while to come through, but now we're in year 3, we're actually starting to see some of the fruits of that labour and some of the fruits of that advocacy start to come through. So I'm particularly excited, as Councillor Isa said, that F4.1 to review disability access of council-owned property as part of a condition assessment and audit reporting is coming through. That's really important work, and I think that big body of work will actually set the benchmark for local government in DDA compliance. That's something I'm really happy about and really proud of our officers for putting in that due diligence. It's really great. A couple other things that I've worked really hard on alongside other councillors. T1.2, which is prepare an events planning framework in line with the arts and culture strategy. This is a really big step for Moonee Valley to open up to external operators to run events and festivals in council land. It really puts us up on the stage with other inner city councils that do similar things, so it's something I'm really excited about, and I know it's a lot of work for officers, so again, thank you for including that. T4.1, which is contentious for some people, but something that I'm really excited about is develop guidelines for commissioning public art, including street art, to continue to make art accessible to the community, something I feel really passionate about. And lastly, C2.1, investigate the feasibility and consider the merit of an e-scooter program across Moonee Valley. I see a lot of my friends zooming around on Lime scooters in everywhere, from Brunswick to South Yarra, and I always feel a little bit sad that I can't join in the fun. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, trying to get e-scooters in Moonee Valley, and hopefully that's something we can achieve this upcoming financial year. So again, thank you to the officers for all your hard work. It's a really exciting council plan, and I hope that we can deliver on all these initiatives.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Hodgson.
Sorry, thanks, Mayor. Look, I just wanted to speak to concur with my colleagues. This is a really exciting plan. There's some great things in there that I think, a lot of people have worked hard to see in there. Just for those perusing it at home, if you do open up the attachment, the bolded initiatives are those budget initiatives, which we were just chatting about and that are really important for us to be accountable with reporting on. We pick a few budget initiatives. I suppose on the flip side of that, I just wanted to highlight all of the non-bolded initiatives, which give a little bit of insight into what happens in our operational budget, I suppose, and that's a part of the budget that we don't necessarily get a whole lot of detail on in the budget documents, but the council initiatives give an indication of how hard our officers work on those non-capital works budgeted expenses and all of the work they're doing to forward plan and plan for a better city and to realise our MV 2040 vision. So another shout out to not only the officers who have put this together, but to all of the officers who will work hard to achieve all of these initiatives as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We now move on to item 9.7, Disability Action Plan 2014 to 2023, progress and endorsement of the proposed structure and process of future disability action plans. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move an alternative.
What is your alternative?
That Council resolves to A, note the report and the progress of the Disability Action Plan 2014 to 2023. B, endorse the proposed structure and process for future disability action plans as detailed in attachment 1, but incorporating but not limited to I, all learnings from the implementation and progress review of the current DAP 2014 to 2023. 2, any outstanding actions not delivered to be rolled over into the new DAP 2024 to 2025. 3, identification of actions and cost estimates arising from the audit of all council facilities in brackets non-2022/14 council facilities in relation to their compliance with the Disability Discrimination Act 1992, close bracket, for future budget considerations. 4, inclusive and genuine engagement with community and industry stakeholders. 5, changes and new requirements arising from the Victorian Disability Inclusion Bill currently in draft.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nation. Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. The Disability Action Plan is an important policy that supports a whole-of-council approach to continuing to achieve a broader inclusivity and wider equity throughout the City of Moonee Valley to those in our community who may have a disability. This report provides an update on the progress of the current DAP deliverables, which expires at the end of this year, and also a proposed structure for the upcoming 2024 to 2025 DAP. Out of the 57 actions highlighted in the current DAP, 37 actions are completed in full, 7 actions are partially complete, and 1 action has not yet been started. 6 actions are no longer relevant due to changes in statutes or other external factors. My amendment highlights a key body of work that is currently being undertaken by our asset team, which I mentioned just previously, and that's actually F4.1 of the now endorsed council plan. To complete a council-wide audit of our facilities and to assess each facility with its compliance under the Disability Discrimination Act 1992, which is a massive yet vital body of work and something that I believe should be highlighted and celebrated. It's something that not a lot of councils are doing. As I mentioned, it requires a lot of work, something that I believe is really important work and something I'm really proud of. This audit will at some stage be presented to Council next year, I believe, and provide vital insight for budget purposes in order to attain the highest compliance with DDA. As a council, I'm so proud of how hard we've worked to strive for this, and it's something like I said, I'm really proud of. So thank you to the officers for all your work, and I'm looking forward to seeing the 2024-2025 DAP when it gets presented to us.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor, and apologies, Councillor Bedio. I hadn't seen that extensive work you'd done in the pack. I was just going to move the officer's recommendation, but that is a much better resolution, not discounting the officer's recommendation, but I'm more than supportive of this alternative motion. The Disability Action Plan is a plan that dates back to 2014, and as a council, it was one of the first times we actually rolled out a genuine action plan. I remember when I first got onto council in 2012, there was policy after policy after policy, but a lot of them would just sit there on the shelf. And the Disability Action Plan that was devised in 2014 had specific and measurable and achievable targets that were built in. And you can see now we're 9, almost 10 years on, 37 of those actions have been achieved of the 51. As Councillor Bedio mentioned, 6 or 7 are redundant, one's not completed. And that is because we built in those actions. It could have very easily just sat as a policy on the shelf and we dusted off 9 years later, and that progress that we've made as a local government organisation would not have occurred. You can also see in the report there's been a number of notice of motions over the past 9 years. I think about that motion I moved for Glenbervie Station, trying to get the area around Glenbervie to be disability compliant. We know in our city there is a lot of old assets and old infrastructure, and retrofitting lifts or ramps can be very challenging. The issues we've gone through with the Essendon Rowing Club is testament to that. So those officers that were around in 2014 that took the action to make this an action plan and not just a policy, I think they are the real heroes here. They have delivered 37 excellent outcomes along with our disability reference group. We also have a number of the specialist schools in our area that have contributed to delivering and helping us outline these actions. So I look forward to this 24-25 plan. I hope it picks up on that SMART language, those specific and measurable and achievable, reachable targets with time frame. I don't know if that's the R actually, but and with time frames so they can hold at least councillors a little more accountable to make sure we're putting the budget spend in there to deliver these outcomes. So thank you, Councillor Bedio, and thank you to all that have contributed to rolling out these actions over 9 years. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We now move on to 9.8, Adoption of Arts and Culture Strategy 2023/27. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move an alternative. That Council resolves to endorse Attachment 1 to be renamed Igniting Creativity in Moonee Valley 23-27.
Thank you. Councillor Bedio, can I clarify, are you moving an amendment to the officer's recommendation, or is that your alternative?
That's the alternative.
Yep. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. It's with very great pleasure that I move the Moonee Valley's first ever arts and culture strategy. This has been the culmination of years' work and something that I take considerable pride in having pushed hard for over the past few years alongside fellow councillors. Using this strategy as a basis, I have hopes that Moonee Valley will become an arts capital of Melbourne, rivalling other neighbouring councils in the M9 such as Marybeck and Yarra. This strategic document is key to unlocking the wealth of arts and culture throughout Moonee Valley, finding ways to support local artists with opportunities locally, creating more opportunities for arts and culture to flourish in our existing retail and hospitality scene, with an aim to develop a thriving nighttime economy, increasing the presence of street art and valuing its importance in our city, as well as much, much more. There was significant consultation went into development of this strategy, and what we heard pretty loud and clear was that our community is looking for opportunities to enjoy arts and culture locally. I know myself, as someone who does enjoy the arts, having to leave Moonee Valley to experience a lot of these events is something that I know we've spoken about quite a lot, Mayor, and as younger people in our community, and I know that many people in our community are looking to be able to enjoy those events in our city. What we also heard is that we need to improve our infrastructure and activate dormant spaces for potential use for the arts. That as a council, our community is begging for more opportunities to engage in a local nighttime economy. This strategy will guide council in future decision making, but also has key deliverables to drive arts and culture in Moonee Valley. For instance, by the end of this year, we will have our first ever festivals and events framework, which will enable private operators to run events and festivals in council-owned and managed spaces, including parks, car parks and streets. This is huge. It's something that's never happened in Moonee Valley. We have generally been leaning towards a more conservative end for this sort of thing. So this is a massive step for us to be taking as a council, and something I'm really, really excited about. Another exciting deliverable is the implementation of a nighttime economy precinct, which will provide incentives to local businesses and landlords to host live music and visual arts displays from local artists. Again, a really big step, and something that I'm not sure many other municipalities have gone down, a path that they've gone down. So it's something that I'm really excited to see and trial and see how this works out. This is such an exciting strategy, and I encourage all who are interested in the arts to read through and see what's in store. We have so much to celebrate about our culture here in Moonee Valley, and I'm excited to unlock that talent and share it with the rest of Greater Melbourne. A big thank you to the tireless work from our officers in putting together this strategy. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bedio, for those words. I can agree with everything that's been said. It's a really fantastic plan. I'm loath to invoke the dreaded virus a second time this meeting, but you know, one of the things we learned through COVID was how much we rely on the arts and artists and creative minds to keep us healthy and well. They did so much for our well-being while we were stuck in lockdown, and I think that this strategy is the culmination of a realisation that, you know, we need to be supportive of that community and everything that it offers to our broader community. It's a bold and ambitious plan, and I think that's really great. It's one that we can't deliver on our own because of that, and it will rely on strong partnerships, and I think that this council has shown how we're really strengthening and improving the way that we engage with community. And I really think that we're in a space where those strong partnerships will be easy to forge, or not easy to forge, but we're ready to forge them with local creatives, with other levels of government, with private enterprises to really make sure that this vision can come to life. And I also just want to note and thank those people who completed the survey. The engagement in some of the written in responses to this consultation through the Your Say survey is really exciting. It offers not only general and overwhelming support for the strategy, but also some really creative ideas on how we can get going on it already. So I think that that consultation report, which is in an attachment, is also an indication of how welcome this is for our community and the people in our community that will benefit from this strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We now move on to item 9.10. Extension of contract number 203092 for receipt of recyclable materials. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Move the officer's recommendation, Mayor.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Isa. Would you like to speak? No. Councillor Bedio, would you like to speak?
Look, just briefly, this is a one-year extension to an existing contract for the receipt of recyclable materials. Not much further to add other than this is a more of a process requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Hodgson.
Just to add that at the conclusion of this, it's expected that with regional procurement contract being discussed between the M9 group of councils, there might be another option for us for, you know, a collaborative contract for this same service. So looking forward to seeing what comes out of a group advocacy and procurement process like that. Thanks.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We now move on to item 10, notices of motion, and we have two on the agenda tonight. I call on Councillor Hodgson to present her notice of motion titled Notice of motion number 2023/23, naming proposal main foyer at Jering Flemington Hub.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council resolves to name the main foyer at the new Jering Flemington Hub as the Jim Cusack foyer after the late Jim Cusack, former Mayor 2011 to 2012 and Councillor 2005 to 2020 of Moonee Valley City Council, to acknowledge his dedication and contribution to the Moonee Valley community, especially his advocacy to build the new Flemington Hub and his leadership for social justice outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Mayor. As was acknowledged at the last meeting, former Mayor and Councillor Jim Cusack sadly passed late last month. He was a larger-than-life character and was well known and respected in the community for his dedicated service to our city, both as a councillor and as Mayor. Tonight, I'm putting forward a proposal that we recognise Jim's contribution to Moonee Valley, in particular his advocacy for our nearly completed Jering Flemington Hub, by naming the foyer of the hub the Jim Cusack foyer. Jim was a colleague and friend to many of us, and his generosity and selflessness defined his leadership during his time as a councillor, and outside of that as an active community member. He had a love for local footy and lawn bowls, a passion for reconciliation and social justice, and a calling to stand up for his community, in particular those without a voice. He lived his values, and this marks his legacy in Moonee Valley. When the Flemington Community Centre had to close because the building was failing, Jim and his fellow Murnon councillors, Councillor Nation and former Councillor Nicole Marshall, took up the cause for a new hub to service the needs of our community, and I thank all councillors around the room who have had a part in that journey to get that to fruition, because in a few short months that hard work will come to fruition when we have the chance to open the new and improved community facility to house all those essential community programs and more that have been missing for several years. The hub will be a place for all residents from Flemington and surrounds to use and enjoy, whether it's the classroom spaces or the cafe, the hall. There's a rooftop garden, sports grounds, facilities, parents' room, consulting rooms, communal lounge. It'll be a true hub for the community and bring us all together. It's fitting, I think, for the entrance to this new place to be named the Jim Cusack Foyer, reflecting the hospitality and generosity of Jim and a tribute to the significant civic contributions that Jim made. Jim would have loved nothing more than to be with us on the day that we opened the hub, which he was keenly anticipating. He was there at the sod turning, and he was there for every milestone of the build, and I'm sure he watched impatiently from across the road as he saw the progress of the build over the last year. By supporting the naming proposal, councillors can offer Jim the chance to be with us on the day that we open the hub and every time that we visit. I spoke to Jim's wife Elaine about the proposal, and she and her family are really proud and grateful that this is being considered. And she reflected to me that in the foyer, a place where community will be welcomed and will gather and greet each other, it's the perfect fit for honouring and remembering Jim's community spirit. So I hope councillors can support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Bedio.
Thank you, Mayor. Not much further to add other than a very fitting tribute to a very dedicated and hardworking former councillor and mayor, and happy to support. Thank you, Councillor Hodgson, for putting this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a great initiative, Councillor Hodgson, so thank you very much for putting it forward so that Councillor Cusack or Jim can be recognised at the Flemington Hub. And I think the foyer, naming the foyer after him is, I think that'll be really, really, really nice and a really respectful way of ensuring his legacy lives on down there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. We now move on to 10.2 and a call on Councillor Isa to present her notice of motion titled Notice of Motion number 2023/24, Protection of Significant and Canopy Trees.
Thanks. I'd like to move that Council resolves to receive a report by December 2023 outlining the effectiveness of processes for protecting and maintaining significant and canopy trees in Moonee Valley under the planning scheme, relevant local laws and any other relevant policies and guidelines, and any recommendations for improvements.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isa.
Thanks. We've set ourselves a really ambitious target of a 30% tree canopy by, I think it's 2040. And I regularly, and I think other councillors probably do too, receive concerned emails about the removal of trees, canopy trees in either whether it's in planning permits or whether it's nature strip trees, or people querying how canopy trees are, the processes by which canopy trees can be permitted to be removed. There's also some confusion, I think, about the difference between significant trees and canopy trees, and people not necessarily knowing what the different processes are for protecting and maintaining both of the trees under both of those different labels. So this report is really just asking if we could have this motion is asking for a report that really sets out the processes around protecting both of those trees that fall into both of those categories, and whether or not, in fact, our policies and guidelines and our processes are working effectively to protect the canopy trees that we need to protect if we're going to meet our ambitious target. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Isa, for bringing this motion, because yes, we do get a lot of queries and I suppose some complaints when there are instances where people wanting to make changes or develop land decide to ask for, what's the saying? Ask for forgiveness, not permission. I think there's also, from what I've encountered, a little bit of a confusion when we do issue permits that approve plans that include removal of trees, that the planning permit is not actually the permit to remove the tree. That's a separate permit that needs to be granted by our, I guess it's our, I don't know what section of council, sorry, but the people who give permission to cut down trees. Anything that we can do to just make that clear and make sure that we have strong and clear guidelines to advance the canopy targets that we have in place will be very welcome. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I will, and I'll be supporting this motion because I'm really looking forward to the report coming back. Last week, or perhaps the week before, I learnt a new word, and that word was yimby. And I hadn't heard about it until Maribyrnong City Council decided to basically abandon their work that they'd put into their heritage overlays. And the YIMBY movement, for people who don't know about the NIMBY movement, the YIMBY movement is about, yes, in my backyard. And there's a lot of discussion about supply and affordability of housing at the moment. And I actually think that this is something that Moonee Valley historically hasn't done particularly well. I feel like we're not necessarily leaders in the space in different types of housing and affordable housing, and I just feel like we haven't necessarily always had that particular drive, but maybe compared to some of the other councils, maybe it's just because other councils, say Yarra or Marybeck or Maribyrnong, perhaps get into the media a little bit more in this space. But what I find interesting is I think it will be interesting to see if there is any YIMBY movement, whilst there was a YIMBY movement against putting a heritage overlay on, I think it was about 900 properties, because by putting the heritage overlay, it would then restrict development, or potentially restrict development or expansion of particular dwellings and hence no growth in housing. It will be...
Councillor Byrne, can I ask how what you've said is relevant to the motion? Maybe I'll just ask you to maintain relevance to the motion.
I'm being very relevant. We're talking about putting like overlays on like trees, significant trees, and this
Please continue.
Yimbies.
Keep it relevant, thanks.
I think I'm really relevant, Mayor. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that it will be very interesting to see whether there is a similar response to what there was to heritage overlays, whether there will be a similar, maybe there won't be a response at all, in regards to increasing the amount or quality or whatever it might be in regards to trees, because it's a fine balance between, I suppose, wanting to increase the supply of housing within our municipality and also protecting heritage or protecting trees or whatever it might be. So I'm looking forward to the report coming back, and I'm also looking forward to seeing what council's next steps may be in this space, which I think might actually be tricky to resolve going forward. I remember when there was the significant, pretty sure it was the significant tree registrar, and there were some people that were very against,
30-second
for
extension,
particular reasons, to have trees in their backyard on that. Anyway, so I will be supporting it, and I hope I tied in the relevance.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Very relevant. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. I got it, Councillor Byrne. I guess one of the challenges, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this report, is not wanting to completely restrict through canopy tree protection the ability for further housing to be built in our city, particularly nature strip trees, front yard trees, significant natives that may exist in people's backyards, where I think they're the ones that trigger the permit that Councillor Hodgson was talking about. Definitely down at the old Lionsville, it's the native trees that require a permit to be removed, the non-natives don't. I just don't want the intention to protect our canopy then create too much red tape with smaller, non-significant canopy trees, if that's a thing in the backyard, then preventing housing from being built. I guess not every block is a single dwelling in a big backyard, particularly in the more northern end of the municipality, or even out definitely in Rosehill Ward now, when there's a lot of dual locks or three on a block, and that is only achievable with the reduction of some tree growth. It's just the sheer nature of a house in the backyard being knocked down and two or three being put on a block, which isn't great on every block, but we do need housing diversity. We do need the capacity for people to not have too much red tape to build, so people have houses to live in. You look at the median house prices in our city, they raised 1.6 million. I think is the highest. Airport West in COVID tipped over $1 million. So people need places to live if we want them to live in our city. Protecting our canopy is really important. I'd really be interested in building into the planning scheme any tree removal to be rebuilt with two. I know City of Marybeck have an element in their planning scheme which requires the planting of trees, so there might be ways around it. I get scared at red tape, particularly when there are outcomes we're trying to achieve, or there are competing outcomes, but noting the West continues to have a low canopy target, so it is something that we need to work towards. It is something that's in our council plan that we move tonight. I just don't want it to come at the loss of housing or the ability for people to build on land they own. So this will be an interesting report. More needs to be done, particularly with nature strip trees, front yard trees. And it'll be an interesting report to consider. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. That That is the end of item 10 and notices of motion. We move on to item 11, urgent business. Councillors, is there any urgent business? If not, we move on to item 12, confidential reports, and there are none on the agenda. So we move on to item 13, to close the meeting. Thank you to everyone who has joined us this evening. We appreciate patience with IT issues and a couple of breaks. We're pleased to present our budget for the 2023-24 financial year and thank everyone in the community for their participation. I close the meeting at 10:56. Thank you.